Oral questions, l'honorable député de Louis-Saint-Laurent.
The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, people are wondering why Canada wasn't able to produce vaccines. Yesterday at the Industry Committee, we heard some interesting things. For example, from Dr. Gary Kobinger, a microbiologist at Laval University's Faculty of Medicine. He said, I believe 2 or even 3 different platforms could have been made available here in Canada to deliver vaccines if we had received proper support. Madam Speaker, why did this government not offer adequate support? The Honourable Minister.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, since the beginning of the pandemic, we have announced major investments in promising Canadian opportunities. Dr. Kobinger said that Medicago was the first opportunity that he would have looked at, and we agree. That is why we invested up to $173 million in Medicago in order to support their creation of a bioproduction facility in Quebec. We have facilitated Dr. Kobinger's research with a $1 million investment using an expert-validated selection process, and we are very pleased to be able to support this kind of research. The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Madam Speaker, it is the Quebec government that ultimately rescued this scientist and his research. But it's not just scientists that have an issue with this government's inertia when it comes to developing vaccines in Canada. The president of Merck Canada said that there has been a climate of mistrust and an absence of constructive dialogue, and that it's impossible to understand why our industry is not mentioned as a priority sector. Why has this government failed to listen to either the industry or scientists? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, we need to make the facts clear. From the beginning, we have known that we needed to listen to scientists to determine what vaccines should be used in Canada and what investments were necessary to support our production facilities in Canada. And that is why we have set up vaccine and COVID therapy working groups, bringing together scientists and industry leaders to guide us. The working groups have provided us remarkable guidance with regard to the foreign vaccines we should purchase, which led to contracts with many different companies and investments. The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Madam Speaker, the Parliamentary Secretary talked about the facts. Well, let's talk about the real facts. Once again, as we've seen this morning, Canada is very low down in the vaccine ranking, 56th. Barely 3% of Canadians have been vaccinated, and at the end of March will be at barely 8%. Madam Speaker, vaccines are what is going to enable us to exit this crisis. What is this government's plan for our economic recovery? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, as my colleague knows very well, we received great news this morning as a 3rd vaccine has been approved. That will be added to the total amount of vaccines coming into the country now at high speed, with 6 million vaccines having arrived just from Pfizer and Moderna by the end of March. More than 14 million Canadians will be able to be vaccinated by June, and the whole country will be able to be vaccinated by September. That's economic recovery, Madam Speaker.
Judge Lisgar.
Speaker, when it comes to calling out genocide, the Liberals have gone from abstention to obstruction in just a few days. Last night, they filibustered to keep the committee from adopting a report on the Uyghur genocide. When my colleague from Wellington Halton Hills moved unanimous consent to get to the report, Liberal members refused. Why would they turn a blind eye to government-coordinated rape, torture, indoctrination, and forced sterilization? Why are the Liberals holding up further action to call out the Uyghur genocide in China?
Well, Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that question. And this government takes any accusation of genocide extremely seriously, and we've repeatedly said that we remain disturbed by troubling reports of human rights violations in Xinjiang. We've repeatedly called upon the international community to work to investigate the egregious human rights abuses taking place in Xinjiang, and we have repeatedly called for international investigation in response to these allegations. We'll continue to stand up for human rights in Canada and around the world. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
Stand up? The Liberal government abstained. That is disgraceful answer, Madam Speaker. And during debate, multiple Liberal members said they wanted to know what Canada could do to support a genocide declaration. So when the committee tried to offer those ideas, it was the Liberals who stonewalled, clearly under the direction of the Prime Minister. This confirms that the Prime Minister is more worried about angering his friends in Beijing than acting on the will of this House and standing up to bullies and tyrants. Why is this Prime Minister all talk and no action when it comes to the communist regime in China?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Monday's vote in Parliament ensured that every member indeed had a chance to voice their opinion and to make a determination based on available evidence to express that concern. That is now the voice of Parliament. It's Parliament's view, and the Government of Canada welcomes parliamentarians working together on this critical issue. But the government has additional responsibilities, and it is working with the international community to ensure that these allegations are investigated by international independent body of legal experts. They are doing what they need to do, and Parliament has done what it needs to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Madam Speaker, it is unacceptable that managing quarantines be such a fiasco. We are simply asking for people to be able to follow health guidelines safely. We are just asking for a working hotline. If Star Academy is able to do that, I think the Government of Canada should be able to as well. The solution isn't to cancel quarantines in the middle of a pandemic. The solution is for the government to govern. What is it going to take for the government to do something? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And Canada has some of the strictest travel and border measures in the world. But with new variants of concern, we know that we need to take further steps to protect Canadians from COVID-19. We've been very clear from the very start of the pandemic that no one should be traveling. Doing so can put you and your loved ones at risk. Madam Speaker, we will always act to protect Canadians.
L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Madam Speaker, the Bloc Québécois is not questioning the legitimacy of quarantines. What we're calling into question is this government's bad decisions. Quebec was asking for hotel quarantines for travellers before the holidays, and the government wasn't able to deliver until the end of February. Even after 2 days of delays, it didn't seem to be able to create a working telephone line. Even after 2 months of delays, it hasn't been able to keep people under its responsibility safe. For goodness sake, what has the government even been doing during these 2 months?
Secretary.
Yeah, again, Madam Speaker, we have some of the strictest border measures in the world, and we take the safety of Canadians very, very seriously. We are aware of delays in accessing the phone line for the hotel reservation system. We were experiencing over 27,000 calls daily. PHAC is working hard to solve this issue and is adding staff to support the backlog. Please only call at this time if you are ready to reserve your stay and if your travel is within 48 hours. I thank Canadians for their patience as we implement these very important public health measures.
The honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Well, as the pandemic hit, the first action of this government was to provide liquidity supports for Canada's big banks of an unbelievable $750 billion, a banker nirvana. This week, those banks announced $42 billion in pandemic profits so far. This is outrageous as small businesses close and Canadians struggle to feed their families. Other countries have cracked down on profiteering. Why is the Prime Minister so opposed to measures like a wealth tax? And why does he encourage pandemic profiteering?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I have great respect for the honourable member who posed this question, but I must register my disappointment with his attempt to conflate liquidity support from direct financing from the federal government. The fact is, our focus from the beginning of this pandemic has been to extend supports directly to households and businesses to help them weather the storm. I can point to the 8.9 million Canadians that have received CERB who have been able to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads because of the actions of this government, or the 4.5 million workers who have received support that have remained on the payroll of businesses as a result of the wage subsidy. We're going to be here for small businesses and ordinary Canadians as long as it takes, no matter what it takes.
The Honourable Member for North Island Powell.
Madam Speaker, Canadians who live in rural and remote communities know the boom in bus cycles. In my riding, the paper mill has been curtailed. The forestry sector is still recovering from a lengthy strike. Tourism struggles with COVID-19, and the Discovery Islands decision will impact aquaculture jobs. Like so many rural communities, people in my region are dealing with the pandemic and want the government to invest in meaningful jobs for rural and remote areas. This government needs to step up. Will the minister agree to locate a branch of the new BC Regional Economic Development Agency in my riding?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we understand the importance of rural economy. I live too in a rural riding, and we understand that as we reach the post-pandemic, we do need rural. And I can tell you our government does believe in rural economies, and that's why we announced a universal broadband fund with a rapid response stream to connect Canadians. We know the importance of connectivity, and going forward, we will meet our mandate of connecting 98% of Canadians by 2026. Look forward to working with the member to advance our goals. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, if excuses were paychecks, then we wouldn't have over 800,000 people without jobs since the beginning of the pandemic. But excuses is all we're getting, and they're pretty creative ones too. The government blames COVID, but of course the other G7 countries also have COVID, and they all have significantly lower unemployment than Canada. The next excuse is that they tell us that the unemployment rate no longer matters, that we shouldn't worry about it. What they really mean is that the people who are unemployed no longer matter. Well, we think they do matter, and they don't want excuses, they want jobs. But we don't expect that from this government. So what excuses do they have today?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, with respect, the honourable member as a critic for jobs ought to know that the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States uses a different definition for unemployment than we do in Canada through Statistics Canada. He's comparing apples to oranges. The reality is, because of the measures that we've put forward, we have been able to support 4.5 million workers who have remained on the payroll of their employer through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and another 9 million nearly who've received the Canada Emergency Response Benefit so they could keep food on the table for their families. We're going to continue to be there to protect jobs and support Canadians through this time of unprecedented difficulty.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, in fairness, it is true. The U.S. Bureau does use a different method. But happily, Statistics Canada lines those methods up apples to apples. And so when you compare Canada and U.S. unemployment apples to apples, what do you get? Canadian unemployment is still 1/3 higher than in the United States, higher than in Japan, Germany, the UK, Italy, France. Every single G7 country has lower unemployment than Canada. They can't just blame COVID. They can't just shift the statistics. They need to get to work to try and create jobs, because what Canadians need are paychecks.
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, with great respect, if the honourable member wants to compare apples to apples, I'd point him to the fact that 71% of the jobs have returned from the peak pandemic job losses in Canada compared to 56% in the United States. If he wants apples to apples, I'd point him to labour force participation, which is 64.3% in Canada compared to 61.3% in the United States. But before we get to the job numbers, if he wants apples to apples, our public health response may not have been perfect, but I would invite him to talk to the family members of 500,000 Americans who are no longer living that might have been had they adopted an approach that we took in Canada. We know that public health and economic policy is indivisible, Madam Speaker, and I...
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, yesterday the CFIB told the Finance Committee that small businesses have accumulated on average $170,000 in COVID debt. And this debt is typically not to governments or banks, but to creditors like landlords and suppliers that cannot be deferred. This is a crisis that threatens to wipe out tens of thousands of small businesses and 2.5 million jobs. What is this government doing to catch up with the rest of the world and safely open small businesses?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for raising the CFIB. The CFIB has been asking all parliamentarians, including the Conservative Party, to stop delaying the passage of C-14, which would allow more small businesses, more entrepreneurs to access our financial support programs at the federal level. I would encourage all members of this House to work for our entrepreneurs, work for our small business, and help us support them through this pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Rocky Ridge.
Well, Madam Speaker, here are the facts. 50% of small businesses are closed. Only 26% have accessed rent support. 60% have reduced their staff. 60,000 have already closed permanently, and 1 in 6 are on the brink. And the CFIB pleaded yesterday with the government to freeze or reverse tax increases, including the CPP hike, the alcohol escalator, and the carbon tax hike. Will this government commit today to do so?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And if the member opposite would like to cite some facts, I have a few for him as well. 4.5 million Canadians have been supported by our wage subsidy. Our rent subsidy covers up to 90% of fixed costs for our small business. 850,000 small businesses have received our interest-free CEBA loan program, and that includes a grant. I understand that our entrepreneurs are having a hard time through this pandemic, but this government is there to see them through to the other side.
Honorable député de Mégantic-L'Érable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General had some harsh conclusions about the federal government on rail safety. 8 years after the first report, Transport Canada still hasn't implemented the recommendations, and therefore in 2019, the number of rail accidents in Canada was 17% higher than the average of the 10 previous years. My question is for the new Minister of Transport. In order to avoid another tragedy like Lac Mégantic, does he commit to doing better than his predecessor, who clearly has failed to make rail safety a priority?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me assure my honourable colleague and all Canadians that rail safety will always be our top priority. I welcome the Auditor General's review of Transport Canada's oversight on rail safety. In fact, the Auditor General report has demonstrated that Transport Canada has made important and meaningful changes, including track maintenance, to increasing the number of inspections, to improving fatigue management for workers. So our department is already working to address all of the recommendations, and we will continuously work to improve the safety.
Le député de Mégantic-L'Érable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. It's a scandal, Madam Speaker. Who said that? Not my colleague for Lévis-Lebinière, but rather journalist Bernard Drinville this morning. The expenses to build 15 warships have gone up from $26 to $77 billion. That's 3 times as much. How could the Liberals have let things get to this point? $50 billion. That's taxpayers' money. The Prime Minister is the ultimate person responsible for managing public monies. This warships file isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's sinking, you could say. Could he do his job and end this financial scandal? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, we are totally committed to provide high-quality warships to our Coast Guard and Navy. As my colleague knows very well, the preceding government consistently underestimated the construction costs for ships and generally in the national shipbuilding strategy, and it also excluded the Davies shipyard and other Quebec shipyards. We are on the right path. We are correctly evaluating the cost of these ships, and we will be providing ships for our Navy. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Madam Speaker, we're talking about $50 billion at its cost to exclude the Davies shipyard in Quebec from shipbuilding. $51 billion. Think about that, Madam Speaker. That is more than the total amount than what the federal government has transferred to Quebec and the provinces to fund healthcare. So excluding Quebec has ultimately led to more waste than the entire sum of money that this government invests in health. Why doesn't this government stop the bleed and give the contracts to the Davies shipyard? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, That is exactly what we did. We corrected the historic mistake made by the Stephen Harper government when it excluded a Quebec shipyard from the national shipbuilding strategy. We started with contracts for icebreakers, for ferries, and for warships to the Davie shipyard. And now it is in discussions to become the third shipyard under the shipbuilding strategy, which would enable further contracts to be granted to the shipyard. As my colleague knows very well, we didn't need the Bloc Québécois to act. The honourable member, Madam Speaker, this government does need the Bloc Québécois because what he just told us is a tissue of lies. $51 billion in cost overruns because the federal government refused to give the Davie shipyard its fair share. 1% of that, 1% would be $110 million. And that is more than what the federal government invested in increasing health transfers during the pandemic. How can the government justify that it spent 99 times as much money on wasting money when it could have helped Quebec with higher health transfers during the worst pandemic in 100 years? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, as my colleague very well knows, it is the arrival of the current government that led to the Davie shipyard and other Quebec shipyards having a chance to participate further and get their fair share in the national shipbuilding strategy. We have made sure that the Davie shipyard can continue to work on certain ships, ferries, and icebreakers. And in addition, this means that the door is wide open for the Davie shipyard to be able to fully participate in future contracts. The honourable member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, national media have reported that federal funds were used to fund Bell 5 internet in the Pemichangan Lake region in Quebec. And it has been reported that the CEO of Bell has a chalet on that lake and that there are fewer than 100 residences in the region. Whereas meantime, hundreds of neighboring houses at Lac Saint-Marie don't have a good internet connection. So the Liberal government has shown us once again that you have to be connected to get connected in this country. Why is this Liberal government prioritizing rich chalet owners rather than rural communities? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
And I'd like to thank my colleague for the question, because connecting Canadians, all Canadians, from coast to coast to coast, and our friends in Quebec is a priority for this government. We will work with the province of Quebec and all internet service providers to make sure we meet our mandate of connecting all Canadians by 2030 and 98% by 2026. I welcome my colleague to reach out anytime if I can help him any further. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Madam Speaker, rural Canadians have waited long enough to access reliable internet services. A small Quebec community has been waiting for years to get access. The Liberals provided millions of dollars to upgrade this community's internet. Unfortunately, all of the money has gone to help wealthy cottage owners, including the CEO of Bell Canada, instead of rural residents. Why did this Liberal government prioritize the wealthy and well-connected cottage owners instead of the rural community, or is this just more Liberal incompetence?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, while the member is entitled to his own overheated political rhetoric, he's not entitled to his own facts. The facts are very simple. Since 2015, our government has hooked up over 1.7 million homes, and with the $1.75 billion that has been invested, many, many more homes are going to get connected. And in my particular riding, several $million, we're talking $20.4 million in projects, are connecting many, many households. We need to do way more. And the member should know very clearly that there is not a single member of parliament, neither government nor opposition, that has any choice in the matter. Good public servants make these good decisions, and we need to continue investing more money to get every Canadian connected.
Honourable member for Edmonton West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Edmonton veteran Fred Russell is one of the few remaining survivors of the Dieppe raid. He served in Canada for 6 years during World War II, fighting through Normandy, Holland, and Germany. Today, Fred lives isolated from friends and family because he has still not received the COVID vaccine because of the failures of this government. In Canada's time of need, Fred was there for us. Why in Fred's time of need is this government not there for him?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I apologize, Madam Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for his question. As my colleague is well aware, the vaccine rollout is the responsibility of the provinces. Veterans are a vulnerable population, and we urge them to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. I can inform my colleague that veterans at facilities such as Camp Hill in Nova Scotia, St. Anne Hospital in Quebec, and the Sunnybrook in Toronto have been vaccinated. We remain in touch with long-term care homes, which houses veterans, to ensure that all veterans are getting the support they need. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Manning.
Madam Speaker, it has now been over a year since the first COVID-19 case was confirmed in Canada. Despite the government's messaging at the time that it was not a threat or reason for worry, the virus has spread across the country. The government finally decided to shut down our borders a little too late. A year later, our unemployment rate is at historic highs. Our economy is stalled, and Canada is now behind over 50 countries in vaccine injections. When will my constituents get a vaccine?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to share with the honourable member some good news. With the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines in place, we anticipate that over 6 million Canadians will be vaccinated by the end of March, and I'm pleased to report that this morning Health Canada has approved the AstraZeneca product as well. With respect, we know that there is a clear link between the economic and public health response. We're going to continue to work to promote vaccine uptake throughout Canada to ensure that every Canadian who wants one by the end of September.
The Honourable Member for Cowichan-Malahat-Langford.
Madam Speaker, COVID-19 has put enormous strain on families' budgets. With jobs lost or hours reduced, many have seen their health benefits cut or eliminated altogether. Every month, Canadians are making tough choices between paying for medication or their rent, utilities, and groceries. Liberals first made their Pharmacare promise 24 years ago, but 2 days ago, they cynically voted against Bill C-213, which would have established a national Pharmacare framework modeled on the Canada Health Act. Why do Liberals consistently raise the hopes of working families, only to crush them when the time to act comes?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we have done more than any government in a generation to lower drug prices, and the Minister of Health's mandate letter explicitly calls to continue implementing national universal pharmacare. Instead of imposing a top-down approach on the provinces and territories, we are committing to work together with provinces and territories to create a pharmacare system that works for all Canadians. In the meantime, Madam Speaker, we're establishing a transition office to create a new Canada Drug Agency and a national formulary, while investing $1 billion over 2 years to help Canadians with rare diseases get access to the medications they need. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Esquimalt-Saanich-Sooke.
Madam Speaker, this government likes to talk about its commitment to equal rights based on sexual orientation and gender identity, but often seems to confuse action with surveys and press conferences. Last fall, the Justice Committee heard moving and compelling testimony on the urgent need to bring an end to conversion therapy in Canada. The committee worked hard to bring Bill C-6 back to the House promptly, but since it was reported back last December, the government seems to have forgotten all about conversion therapy. When is this government going to bring Bill C-6 back for final debate and a vote so we can finally put an end to conversion therapy in Canada?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I thank the member opposite for his question and for his conviction on this issue and all of the advocacy and work he has done at the committee and otherwise. We know that conversion therapy efforts are rooted in the premise that one's sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression can and should be changed to a narrow ideal of what is considered natural or normal. There's absolutely no place for the destructive, harmful, and deadly practice of conversion therapy in this country. That is why we introduced legislation that will criminalize this cruel and degrading practice. And if passed, this legislation will make our laws among the most progressive and comprehensive in the entire world. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Madam Speaker, my private member motion M36 called for House to designate August 1st as Emancipation Day, acknowledging the abolition of slavery in British Empire.
One of the key pillars of my motion is education on Black Canadian history and recognizing the contribution of Black Canadians to our society. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth update the House on the effort being taken to address anti-Black racism?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague from Richmond Hill for his extraordinarily hard work on M36 to designate August 1st as Emancipation Day in Canada, as there is much work to be done in the fight against anti-Black racism in Canada. That's why $50 million was spent to support anti-racism initiatives, and the work of the Anti-Racism Secretariat was included in the fall economic statement. We've also introduced funding programs to help Black-owned businesses, to support capacity building in Black communities, to combat systemic anti-Black racism, and advance diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Sunday being the last day of February, I invite Canadians to join us in the Black History Month.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Madam Speaker, as the economy recovers, we're going to see a massive drop for the demand for workers in the hospitality industry and other close proximity industries. Meanwhile, we are seeing an equally as large growth in the demand for skilled workers in the emerging tech economy. Edmonton's unemployment rate is over 11%, and demand for tech workers in my riding in Edmonton Centre is high. How does this government plan to address this imminent frictional unemployment?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
No, thank you, Madam Speaker. That's me. I apologize. Madam Speaker, we recognize it's a challenging time for many and that some workers are having difficulty returning or their jobs just aren't available. And that's why we're committed to making the largest investment in training in Canadian history. This will include supporting Canadians as they build new skills, helping workers receive education and accreditation, and strengthening workers' futures by connecting them to good jobs. These historic investments mean supporting those hardest hit by the pandemic. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Battlefords, Lloydminster.
Madam Speaker, WestJet announced last week that they will be halting their regional route to Lloydminster. This route is an important service to my constituents in Lloydminster and the surrounding communities. Its permanent loss would be devastating. This closure is just the latest as the Canadian aviation industry continues to wait endlessly for a plan from this government. Madam Speaker, what is the Prime Minister's plan to ensure that rural communities a rural community like Lloydminster will be reconnected?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, let me just say that accessibility of all of our regions is important, and air links are essential to regional economic development and prosperity. Everybody knows that the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, has hit the air sector very hard. That's why our government had provided support to individuals and businesses early on in the pandemic. But I can assure the honourable colleague that we are currently in the midst of discussions with major airlines on specific additional support to them. And that discussion includes restoration of regional routes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, the tourism and entertainment industries are being devastated by COVID, and more than a few in my riding are on the verge of shuttering their doors for good. The government extended the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy until June, but the eligibility rules for the extended period have not been announced. The old rules will expire on March 13th, and the lack of certainty is quickly becoming a major problem. Minister, when will the new eligibility rules for the wage subsidy program be announced?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to answer this question from my friend and colleague. I'll point out to the fact that we are well aware that some of these sectors have been particularly hard. That's why we advanced programs like the wage subsidy to cover 75% of the cost of the workforce and up to 90% of the rent through the rent subsidy program. We've also established certain loan programs to help hard-hit businesses, including HASCAP. When it comes to the eligibility criteria for some of these programs as they evolve, I want to reassure him that we're continuously working to refine the criteria so they meet the needs of businesses, and that we will reassure businesses to say these supports are going to remain in place to help weather the storm until the end of this pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen and Nicola.
Madam Speaker, last week I asked about a small business being hurt, not helped by this government. And the response? The government ignored the question, as it is ignoring many businesses with such leases right across the country. This business is being told by Parks Canada they won't get the rental support they need because the Department of Finance believes seasonal leases are annual leases. Would the minister like us to drop off some calendars to her department so they can see for themselves the difference between 6 months and a year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and we're always pleased to work together in order to support our entrepreneurs. I'd be happy to work with the member opposite, but I would like to know why it is that the Conservative Party is playing politics with a bill that will help our small businesses and entrepreneurs in this country. Bill C-14 is going to provide additional support to our small businesses. Will that member and the Conservative Party help us help our small businesses? Yes or no?
L'Honorable.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Quebec is warm and happy. Quebec represents joie de vivre, togetherness and sharing. It's a place plugged into the future but tied to its heritage and traditions. If there is any place that truly symbolizes Quebec, it's the Sugar Shack. 75% of Sugar Shacks might have to close their doors this spring if they don't get support, and there is no federal program that currently exists that meets their unique situation. What will the Prime Minister do to help our Sugar Shacks? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
They don't like maple syrup?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
May I answer?
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize due to my connection. I come from a region where we also are affected by the pandemic, which obviously has hit our sugar shacks. We have many in northern New Brunswick. We are committed to helping all our businesses, and that is why Canada and the government has never stopped to putting in place measures that have been accepted in the House of Commons in the past few months to help all sectors of the economy, including those of our sugar shacks. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Madam Speaker, the government found a way to help the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the NDP with the wage subsidy. It found a way to help its rich friends in the oil companies. It also found a way to send millions to the We charity. It should be able to create a program to support our sugar shacks. This industry is like any other in the world. We are the sugar shacks. It's part of us. Can the Prime Minister commit today to supporting financially our sugar shacks now? Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. From the outset of this pandemic, we were focused on extending support to workers no matter what kind of business they were engaged in. We worked to develop the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, where we covered 75% of the wages for workers who've been impacted by this pandemic. We've also extended support for individuals who needed personal income support, who suffered a loss of that income that has benefited nearly 9 million Canadians. I'd be pleased to work with the honourable member to make sure that workers in the sugar shack sector in his province and mine receive the kind of support that they need to weather the storm through the end of this pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Leeds Grenville, there are no points of order during question period unless it's technical.
The English and the French are coming in at the same level on interpretation, so it's hard to hear, Madam Speaker.
We'll try to repair it. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Canadians are counting on access to reliable, high-speed internet. Students to connect for classes, small business owners to access the virtual market, farmers for crop and herd management, seniors to access healthcare services, and families to connect with their loved ones. The Universal Broadband Fund was announced in 2019, nearly 711 days ago. When will this government finally deliver on high-speed internet access for Eastern Ontario?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'm delighted to stand up and speak about what our government has done to connect Canadians from coast to coast to the coast. We have so many tools in our toolbox. We had the Connect to Innovate program. We have the funding through the Canadian Infrastructure Bank. We have lower satellite funding. And now with the Universal Broadband Fund, and the component of that, the rapid response stream, we are connecting Canadians. Right now, we will have by the end of this year, 1.7 million we've connected since 2015 1.7 million Canadian households and another 250,000 households this year. I encourage the member opposite to have his communities make sure they have applied under the rapid response stream. That will see Canadian.
Honourable member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture released a statement earlier this week that deliberately misled Canadians to believe that Bill C-206 does not provide relief for the fuel costs of grain drying. Does this minister honestly believe that a grain dryer is not an industrial machine used in farming as prescribed in the legislation? Is she this out of touch with farmers, or is she just incompetent?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
I'm sorry.
Member for his question, pollution shouldn't be free. A pricing system where all the revenues stay in the province is one of the key solutions to reduce emissions. Bill C-206 does not provide relief for fuel cost of grain drying, as it does not add grain drying as an eligible farming activity. We are committed to new rebates for on-farm fuel use, such as grain drying, in order to support our producer and make grain drying and barn heating a priority focus under the new $165 million Agriculture Clean Technology Fund. Having a serious plan that achieves our environmental goals is not only what we expected by Canadians, but also by the next generation of farmers.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Madam Speaker, we've heard from many across Canada that the pensions of thousands of UK expats are frozen, despite the government negotiating a new trade deal. These UK state pensions are not uprated when the pensioner lives in a country that doesn't have a reciprocal uprating agreement with the United Kingdom, like Canada. As a result, thousands of British pensioners living here aren't able to access the pensions they've earned. Can the minister tell us what the government is doing to negotiate an agreement that will unfreeze these pensions?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for the question. I'd be happy to work with him to get more detail on the back end of this this question. With respect, it's not an issue that's come to my attention personally, so I would make myself readily available as soon as this afternoon if he'd like to delve into this issue in more detail.
The
Honourable Member for Orléans. Madam Speaker, the opposition often puts forward various erroneous figures about the vaccines. For the residents of my riding and all Canadians, it's important to get updated numbers and the measures that we have already taken and what we can expect. Can the Parliamentary Secretary set the record straight on vaccines that are delivered, have been delivered, and will be delivered in Canada to reassure Canadians? The Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank my colleague from the National Capital for that question and her work. She knows very well. 643,000 doses already arrived this week in Canada. That's 2.5 million doses in total by the end of the weekend, 3.5 million doses by the end of March, 1.5 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine in the first 2 weeks of April, and enough doses of the vaccines to ensure that 14.5 million people can be vaccinated by the end of June, and all Canadians who want to be vaccinated can be.
Honourable Member for Red Deer-Lacombe.
Madam Speaker, tax time can be stressful, especially after a year like 2020. Residents in my riding have been calling my office because of a dramatic decline in service by the CRA. Getting to speak to an agent about your locked out CRA account is taking at least a 3-hour time period. It takes hours on the phone to simply change your address, and that's if you're lucky enough to not get disconnected while you wait. Simple reassessments are dragging on for months, putting people's homes, savings, and benefits at risk. Why aren't Canadians able to speak with the CRA? Why won't the minister address this staggering failure?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know this tax filing season is one like no other. The CRA's call centers have seen an 83% increase in traffic since 2019 due to the COVID programs it is administrating. In October, our government announced an investment of $99 million in these call centers. The funding will help allow CRA to improve services by hiring 2,000 more employees, onboarding a third-party call center, extending the hours of operation, and implementing an automated callback service. I want to thank our call center employees from coast to coast to coast who have been working tirelessly to provide information to Canadians throughout this pandemic and in this current tax filing season. Thank you, Madame la Présidente.
Honourable Member for Edmonton, Wetaskiwin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 3 times I've asked this question, and 3 times through what I can only assume is some kind of Zoom glitch. It was like the person answering was in a completely different conversation. So I'm going to try again. The Liberals have made it virtually impossible for the private sector to build a pipeline in this country. Over the past few years, we've imported tens of millions of barrels of oil per year into Canada by tanker from Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and Algeria. Is that oil subject to the same rigorous regulations on upstream and downstream emissions as oil coming from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Newfoundland? Yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The majority of oil imported to Canada comes from the United States, 74%. Under our government, imported oil has consistently decreased to the lowest levels in 10 years, just under 660,000 barrels per day. The member opposite referenced Saudi Arabia and Nigeria. You know who was happy to buy more oil from Saudi Arabia and Nigeria combined instead of strengthening trade with the United States? The previous Conservative government from 2008 to 2012. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Madam Speaker, my friend JD from Slave Lake works in the oil patch and he likes his job. But Keystone XL has been canceled and now we could lose the easement for Line 5. Alberta's ability to get its energy to market and by extension our ability to get a fair price for our energy is in danger. The energy sector is the engine of Canada's economy. On what day will the Prime Minister pick up the phone, call the Americans, and defend Alberta energy markets and jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Actually, Madam Speaker, we raised Line 5, the Prime Minister raised Line 5 directly with the President and members of his cabinet during the virtual summit this week. We have approached this at the highest levels. Because we take threats to Canadian energy security very seriously, Line 5 is vital to our economy, vital to workers, vital to producers, vital to consumers in Canada and in the United States. I assure this House that we are working on all of our options. Line 5 is a vital pipeline for Canada's energy security. The Prime Minister has already addressed it with the President of the United States. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. You're on mute. I apologize, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in Vimy, many of my constituents rely every day on safe, reliable and affordable public transit. Can the Minister of Infrastructure explain how the creation of a permanent fund for public transit would allow communities to develop their public transit network while growing their economy and fighting against climate change? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the member for Vimy for her question. Municipalities need predictable funding for public transit in order to plan and develop projects that help people to travel quickly, cheaply, and in a green way. This historic funding in public transit will help Canadians to get around more quickly, cheaply, as I indicated, while creating good jobs and fighting against climate change, as well as creating cleaner communities.
John's East.
Madam Speaker, a new report says that nearly 1 in 10 federal inmates in structured intervention units are being subjected to treatment defined as torture. Solitary confinement, supposedly outlawed, continues. It confirms what inmates, prisoner advocates, and investigators have been saying for years, that Canada is not following its own laws and court rulings. Now it's clear that it's also violating the UN Convention on Torture. The inescapable conclusion of this report is that we can't rely on the correction services of Canada alone to protect the rights of inmates. The question is simple. What is the Minister of Public Safety going to...
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the member opposite for his question, and I share his concern. We in Bill C-83, imposed legislation, and we've been working with the Correction Services Canada to ensure the proper implementation of the SIUs. We are very grateful for the work of Dr. Dube and our external panel in their review, and their insight and analysis has been very helpful. We also rely on the work of our external review bodies that also examine this issue. It is a complex one, but I want to assure the member and this House of our absolute commitment to ensure that people who are in our custody and our federal institutions are treated fairly. We recognize the challenges of special.
The honourable member for Brampton Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sikh community was grateful and delighted by the government for removal of Sikh religion word from the 2018 terrorist threat report to Canada. However, large number of communities still have questions to the government, even today. Who pressurized the Prime Minister office? Number 2, Minister of Public Safety. Number 3, Canadian intelligence community to compromise national security of Canada because Sikhs in general never wanted such a dangerous.
Parliamentary Secretary. Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. With respect to this issue, I want to assure this House that certainly our national security intelligence services monitor the activities of concern within Canada and internationally. We work very closely with our partners, but frankly, I would also caution the member about the use of intemperate language and making allegations not based on evidence or fact. I think it's very important, Madam Speaker, that these matters be dealt with responsibly, and we rely entirely on the good work of our national security intelligence agencies and law enforcement to keep Canadians safe.
That is all the time for question period. C'est tout le temps disponible pour les questions orales.